Welcome to this video discussing testing with the Playwright MCP. I'm going to show you how you can quickly validate your agents and apps with this awesome MCP server. Start with what is the Playwright MCP? So MCP is a model context protocol, and it's a server that provides browser automation using Playwright. If you're not familiar with Playwright, that is a sort of automation engine that is out there. Microsoft is owning that one. Its competitors or contemporaries would be things like Selenium and others. But this particular server, what I like about it is that it allows LLMs, so whichever models you may work with, if that's ChatGPT or Sonnet, as we'll discover later, but it allows them to interact with web pages through the accessibility snapshots that Playwright will provide. So you don't have to essentially work with the underlying DOM or any of the actual nuances of the website itself or agent itself. So it's a very, very powerful, and as we'll show later, we'll get into that. Before we can get into it, we need to know how to install it. So this is all pulled from the official GitHub repo, which I'll show in a demo later. But you can install it on Visual Studio Code, which is what I'll be using in the demo, or other IDEs such as Claude Desktop, Cursor, etc. For VS Code, there is a button, an easy button you can press that will essentially launch VS Code and get that installed for you. Cursor has a button as well. Claude, there's command instructions on how to do that. You've got it installed in VS Code. I use the commands on Windows machine, Control-Shift-P. That brings out the different commands you have. You can search for MCP:list servers. I will navigate to the configuration on the example, and you can see where Playwright will be installed there. This here shows that I'm using the latest version of it, and so on. But what I think is very interesting here is you see I added an additional argument, which is the -- headless. So this one allows me to run silently in the background. We'll look at the different settings you can put here. There's many that you can put, including how to add tracing and recording videos and different types of browsers to use this on and so forth. But for this one, I'm just simply showing a sample, which is how to run in headless mode. Showing one that I started when I started working with this, a very simple test. So instructions for my agent: open the browser and navigate to a specific URL. In my case, this is for Dynamics 365 for testing a model-driven app. So I'm clicking on my customers, verifying that Contoso is in the list, and then clicking on hyperlinks, looking at account IDs, service deliveries, and just different stuff here. You can see at the end, I'm actually telling it to update a record and then save it. So here's an example of a very simple test. You'll see the pound sign is just something to tell the agent this is important to do this. Advanced with the server, I decided to get a little bit more adventurous with my test to make it a little bit more appealing for both the tester as well as the model itself. So now I added a test case, gave it a friendly name, Ask a CSA. And in this one, we're actually going to tell it certain things. And this here, you can actually most likely put into sort of pre-steps so that you don't have to do this. And in fact, you don't necessarily even have to put all these settings here, because remember, we want to make sure these tests read as a tester would write them, right? So very natural language. So navigating, opening, asking, recording, comparing, these are all sort of the verbs that I expect, and it works very well with doing this. So in our case, we're going to open up an agent, send some commands, collect the response, and then I'm going to do a validation after, just confirm that everything matches up and so on. So here's an example of maybe a better test. And I encourage you to to provide comments on this video, letting me know of techniques you've discovered that help with making even more fluent testing than even I'm finding out now. So I encourage you to drop a comment in the discussion below. Here's the moment we're waiting for. I'm going to do a demo of installing the Playwright MCP server, configuring it, and going through a test. Okay, for this demo, I'm going to show from the beginning how to install the MCP server and then go through test here. So let's start, I guess, at the beginning, right? So we see GitHub Microsoft Playwright-MCP. That's where you'll want to go to get instructions to work with the Playwright MCP server. There's instructions as you go down that tells you how to do it. Here, if you want to do VS Code, which is how I'm demoing it, there's a button you can press. You'll see that it'll try to open up Visual Studio Code. You hit open, and it'll essentially configure that for you. Here's some of the other IDEs, so Claude Desktop, Cursor, Gemini CLI, Windsurf, etc. So that's all there. So when you install it, you'll see Visual Studio Code here, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-P, and I have List Server, and I have different servers here. I'm going to go to Playwright and say Show Configuration, and I can show here I have Playwright, and then I have a specific argument. I put headless in here, and so what's that showing me? So that is showing me down here different configurations I can add to the args list here. And there's various ones, and they have a nice description for each one. Headless just helps us run it silently behind the scenes, and so that one's typically a good one where I can run multiple tests sort of asynchronously while I'm doing other work and not have a visual representation. If I need to see it, then I would obviously not have that that setting there, and then I could watch the test. There's other options you can do as well, like saving the session. I'd recommend saving a trace or even video. You can save a video into what size so you can watch the video, as well as being able to store if I have passwords I need. So I have a secrets path. I can add IDs to the test and so on, and what size the viewport, and even user agent. So maybe I want to try to mimic a certain version of Chrome or Edge, whatever that would be. And as well as a directory, I've seen this useful for saving logs, test results, or pulling information. Maybe there's a spreadsheet with test data, something like that you want in there. So I encourage you to review the settings here and work with those. So say you've already clicked the VS Code install, you've done what you need, you've set this up. So I have here my GitHub Copilot chat. I'm using Claude Sonnet 4. There's different options you can have here, Sonnet 4.5, Haiku, and various others. But I'm using 4 for this example. So I have a folder here called Testing with MCP. You can see on the left a couple of folders within. But here's what I have. So this MD is a Markdown file. So Markdown is a format that these models tend to work very well with. You may see, like, say, pound signs here, meaning that's sort of a header, and there's different things there. You can look online for Markdown, and I think there's even some editors that can take maybe something you've written, say, in Word or Notepad, and turn that into Markdown for you if you're not comfortable with it. But you can see here I have a very simple test case. So this one is testing Dynamics 365. So it's going to open a browser, navigate to a URL, and then once I'm in there, it's going to click on customers and do various things here. In our case, we're looking for Contoso and so on here. So once I have that, what I would tell the test is I could say something like, run test case 1, and it would go ahead and run that. What's interesting though is if you get a little further, you can ask a little bit more of the Playwright MCP server. So in this case, I've given it a title, ask a CSA, so something a little bit more friendly. I've given it specific instructions. I've asked it to set certain things as well that I know are commands, like start tracing is one, and stop tracing. So in this one here, I'm going to open up in headless mode. I don't necessarily even need to say that because I've got the configuration, but you can do something like that as well. I'm going to navigate to an M365 agent, or open up a specific agent. say help with Canvas app, record the response, convert it to JSON, and I'm going to actually compare it to a response that I've gotten manually, and I want to see how well it will compare to that. So this is part of my validation. I'm going to ask a follow-up, so we're doing sort of a multi-turn conversation. Then I'm going to stop the tracing. I've now said validations after run. These two stars are sort of putting it in bold so that the model knows that it has to be done. So I'm saying confirm the output from step 4 matches the content in the JSON, confirm that the test took time to run under 2 minutes, and present the request and response and timestamps. That's if I want to look at sort of the performance of how this test ran. So once I have all of that, what I can do now is start up a new one and say something like run the test within the open folder. Let's just start with that and see. There's multiple tests in here. You can see test case 1, test M365 Copilot, and so on. So it's going to look for these different specs here for files of markdown. You can see. So it's looking, it's searching for files here, the current test files. So it found ask a test case 1. It's finding all of these files, and it's going to attempt to run these. It's looking inside of this folder here. Shouldn't be much in there, but it's going to go. It's going to look to see it's running. So you can sort of follow along with this here. So it's got access to it. It's going to run the first test case, which is ask a CSA test. You're not going to see it actually in action because of the headless mode, but it will run here. So it's going to run my thing. So it's navigating to M365 portal. You see, so it ran this navigate to a URL right here. You can see all the different stuff it's doing. It's like, great, I can see we're on the chat interface. There's a text box message where I can ask, and it's going to ask the first question. So it navigated to that agent. Then it's asking the question, which is help with Canvas app. And you can see it's doing certain things. It's waiting for a response. So sometimes these agents take a little bit because they run in sort of async mode. It actually grabbed a file, or excuse me, it created a screenshot, and you could probably rename that using your test here. And we'll just let it run, and it'll finish up here in a second. It's not doing much. It's just asking 2 questions and then gathering what it needs. So let's give it a minute to wrap, and we'll just kind of see in real time what the test output looks like, including the validations that I've asked. See how it's comparing to the JSON here. Now it's going to create a summary of the responses and save the test results and mark it as complete. So it's going to try to run the other ones. The other ones have failures in it because I'm masking the URLs and things for this recording here, but we should be able to see the test run. So I'm going to pause and let this finish up, and we'll come back. So you can see it went to the next one, and this one here was a Dynamics 365 URL, and it said I need authentication, and it couldn't authenticate. So it's going to mark that it has an issue with authentication, which is quite refreshing to see here. So it's running the final case for M365, capturing screenshots and so on. Here's the response that I got for it. So it's actually saying, here's the question I sent, so help with Canvas app. Here's the response. Here's how long it took for each one. And then I have the analysis that I did against this response here. So it contains expected topics. It missed some expected topics about ALM. And here's the question here, but it matches the formatting and so on. This one was excellent. So it gives all that. You can take this and put it into a nice report as well using this here. So it's creating the different responses. You can see here, this one says requires authentication for this one. There you have it. We've now shown how to install the Playwright MCP server, how to configure it, how to write test. I performed a demo. Try to make this as quick as possible. I hope it's been helpful. Again, if you have any things you want to discuss in the comments, drop one below. If you have anything you'd like to see more about this, just again drop a comment, and I'll be sure to create any follow-up videos. But thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.